my father is a Afrikaans teacher, and so the languages have always been in my genes. But I actually majored in both Afrikaans linguistics and psychology, and for quite a while I was completely set on going further with psychology, and then the acceptance for psychology, I mean for Afrikaans and linguistics, came before psychology, and I actually thought that okay, I haven't been accepted for psychology, and I was on a set path and I was happy. And then later, a month or so, the acceptance for psychology came through as well. But eventually I decided, well, I've made up my mind and I'm settled and so on. I'm not gonna change. And then I did an honors in Afrikaans, and while I was there, I came across this weird, strange, small little subject section called translation. And I thought, well, this is quite interesting. Linguistics is fine, but I'm not sort of the academic and the theory side of things is all right, but it doesn't seem active enough for my brain. So I thought, well, okay, let me go further, and so I did a master's in translation, and I eventually wanted to teach translation, but then I thought, okay, no, I'm much too shy to be a teacher or a lecturer for that matter. So let me be true to my nature and do translations and sit quietly with all of my dictionaries, and be in my element. So I'm now looking back, I'm not actually, psychology helped me quite a bit in the industry as well, because we're an LSP and working with freelancers and clients of all walks of life. You sometimes have to know what people are about and what their minds are about and what they feel and think and so on. So psychology is still there. Business has a big part of business is how people feel and what they think about. We actually, the company Folio started, our MD, which is now a business partner of mine, started it as he was just a translator, an Afrikaans translator, and he worked on mainly marketing for quite a while. And then on the side, he was a linguistic lecturer as well, and he sort of perhaps went the same route as me, decided he wasn't teaching or lecturing isn't for him. And then marketing people said, well, you're a good translator in Afrikaans. Do you perhaps know of other people in the industry that can help us with Zulu or one of the other South African languages? And he said, well, okay, let me sort of ask around in my circles, and they found someone, and it just exploded from there. We actually turned 35 last year. So, and I joined the company now 18 years ago. So it started off initially just as a South African company, and then about in 2000 there was a different leg where I am that only serves international clients, and now we've added another leg that specializes in interpreting and sign language interpreting and all the various remote sign language interpreting and all of the various legs of interpreting. And we're working in subtitling now, and all of the main sectors that you would think is important in these days. And I think, well, it's if you are an LSP and you focus on one thing, you're probably doomed in the industry, because the variety of sectors, you have to manage that, and you have to be involved in as much as possible. Because if technology and so on takes over one sector, as we see now, you have to have a diverse services so that you can fall back on some of the others and grow there. So actually, I have no idea how long we've long been a member, but the other day I was updating something on our company description on the GALA website, and I haven't done an update in quite a while, and I saw there's a nice little long-standing member of GALA, and you felt sort of quite proud. You've done a lot, you've achieved a lot, and I mean, we most likely, one of our growth areas in the international sector has been influenced by GALA. I can't deny that at all. You learned quite a lot. You see webinars going out, you see newsletters containing things that you are interested in, you see firsthand or learn firsthand what the markets and the sectors are that you should perhaps focus on, because generally the international markets are more prevalent. I mean, is the go-to markets for international clients. They say how they dictate how the industry is going, and then normally here in South Africa, in the African market, you get it a couple of years later. You see that trend coming in, the international trend coming in. So if you know the international trends, you can be prepared for it, and be ahead of a lot of people in the domestic market and the African, the continental market. So I think that was quite nice. And I mean, it's still there. You can still be prepared. You can still know about machine translation, and you can get your people trained in post-editing of machine translation, so that when it started here, and it is sort of, it's still not big here, but people are sort of waking up a little bit. Clients are waking up a little bit and seeing what it is, and you can say, well, no problem, we can do that. We've got the people trained, and we're ready. Instead of a company saying, okay, I must first learn a bit about it and train some people, and you are constantly ahead of the curve in that sense. I've been to quite a number of GALA conferences just as an attendee, and very interesting subjects and sessions, but generally something is raised in a session, and you see, perhaps I want to know a little bit more about that. It's not covered enough. And then the next conference, you fill out the conference survey, and you see, the suggestions you see, okay, please cover this a little bit more. That's interesting to me. And then the next year, again, very interesting topics, and you're very happy with the attendance, but that little thing that in the back of your mind that you suggested is still not being covered. So I thought, well, instead of sitting back, why don't I try and get on a committee that can dictate what I like, what I want to know about. So I spoke to you, Issa, and initially during our initial first interview, you said, no, it's not a lot of work. You can manage it sort of on the side and do your business, but it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And this year for the Dublin conference, we initially, I think, Alicia or Alison or one of the two, or Ali said, normally the average number of people sending in calls for papers is sort of in the 90 or 100 or so on. So when the 197 submissions came in, all of us were sort of, oh yikes, we will have to do a lot per day. You can't skip it. You can't have your nice Sunday evening rest or afternoon rest. You have to do your 4 or 5 per day. Otherwise, you're gonna not do it, not make it. But I mean, it's a thrilling, fulfilling time in my localization journey. You worked with people you generally completely different outlooks, even values of the sector, things that they like. You work with clients, people I've never heard of, and you get a sense of people liking what you like, and you have to not just advocate the subjects that you like, the submissions you like, but actively defending why you liked it. You and saying, no, but I think these two are clashing a bit, and is it really relevant in the coming days? Just to reiterate a lot of work, once we were finished with the actual submissions and we had all of the things, suddenly we heard, oh no, we have to do some training and some guiding of the actual speakers. And I thought, oh dear, I'd have to now find time for that. But that was perhaps on par with the enjoyment of the actual reviewing of the submissions and getting the themes of the conference, the theme of the conference, because you could really work with people and say, playing as an audience member and working with them, saying, well, you're talking about this, but perhaps it's not clear. What about this? You really worked with the actual presenters and gave your opinion, and you feel part of the actual presentation. You have a sense of accomplishment in their good delivery of the actual presentation and the talk. So that was a part of the committee work that I also enjoyed, and I was roped into being on the actual Rising Star committee as well, because I mean the program committee is not a lot of work, so perhaps I could do the Rising Star as well, and it ended up being a hell of a lot of work. But again, looking at student submissions specifically, the faculty submissions were very interesting, but looking at the students' submissions, because they have a completely different view of things, and seeing where the actual students are interested in, and what their feeling is about the industry. And we often talk about there's a disconnect between academics and actual industry, and seeing what they are interested in. Because if you dictate to them what the industry is about, you don't introduce new ideas of what the industry should be about. I think the idea that Africa is one country, that is probably one of the first biggest errors that companies who want to market here is thinking. We still get, even in these days with knowledge being plentiful, we still get so much ignorance about not only the size, because people literally do not realize what the size is. There's a interesting thing that I shared a couple of years ago about the actual size of Africa, where you can fit in European countries, the whole of United States, the whole of China, the whole of India, everything you can fit, all of those countries, most of Eastern Europe, you can fit all of that in Africa. And that gives a huge or a good perspective of just how big the continent is. So, and I mean, people don't know, you have 2,000 languages in Africa that you can reach people in. Obviously, there are the big languages if you want to do it and you want to divide it in, but getting someone who says, can you give me sort of the 2 or 3 languages that I can cover Africa with, it's absolutely impossible. So generally, if people want to, or if companies want to sort of see a broad view, we generally speak about the 5 main regions of Africa. You have North, South, West, East, and then Central Africa. So that is extremely broad, but that is sort of an idea of what the languages are, broadly speaking, what the culture is about. You absolutely cannot use an Eastern African approach and think that will work in Southern Africa or Northern Africa. I think that is probably what the error is that many companies do who want to market their product or enter the African market, not just market, but just enter, is they don't do their research. They think, I hear the reports of Africa as a growing market and one of the fastest growing markets, so let me sort of try and get in there. One of the phrases I hear so much and hate so much is so-called long tail languages. Third world, yes, but it immediately gives a stigma to it. It immediately says, listen, we're going to focus on the FIGs, and the long tail languages come a bit later. We're going to develop write copy for the American and European market, and then that copy should then be translated for Africa. They must just figure it out. And I mean, that's literally impossible. You have to, if you want to market in the African continent, you have to be there at the inception, at the writing of the copy that you want to market in. So companies have to ask themselves, do I want to enter? Why? Why do I want to enter the African market? Is it just to be present there, or do I really want to make a difference for my company? Do I really want to really reach the audience on their level? I always say that generally in Africa, and perhaps in other countries as well, you start with the basics in the industry. You start with food, health and food. So you start with having a life science translation. That is the start. You have a translation about food, packaging, marketing, branding of a toothpaste or a porridge or the the basic needs of someone, and then you grow into IT, and you grow into academics, and so you have to know where that country is on the hierarchy of the industry. But you cannot, in a country like Rwanda, they've really put a lot of effort now to get their IT side of things completely revolutionized and developed, because they know that is the future of not the industry, of the world. So you cannot, yes, they started as well with the basics and the life sciences and marketing and so on. But for them, they decided, let's sort of switch it around a bit. Let's make IT a lot more important. And there are companies that want to market in a place like Rwanda. They have to know what the languages are, what that people use in IT. If you have a cell phone, if you have a mobile app, what are the lingo and slang and so on that they use on that app. Personally, if we look at you are pretty proud that you raise happy children, and they are looked after and loved and so on. So that's a personal accomplishment in a working sector. I know I've worked on big projects in the past. I've settled myself in how a project manager or a manager should work. And we've worked on Microsoft and Windows products, and then suddenly you're asked to be involved with Windows 7 from inception right up to release. And that experience was probably one of the toughest and hardest and mind-boggling and numbing and frustrating times of my career. And I've worked on many interesting projects since, but the minute that you come into a store and you see there is your product that you worked on, that was for me probably one of the highlights of my career.